Imagine discovering that your energy, your inner strength, and even your mental clarity depend on a part of your body you've probably never really listened to. It is not a theory. It is ancient knowledge preserved for centuries and survived only thanks to the determination of a few masters. Today, for the first time, we will explore its deeper meaning, and it is essential that you stay until the last moment. You could understand something decisive about your vitality. The ancient Tibetan medical tradition held a vision of the human organism in which the kidneys were not mere filtration instruments, but luminous centers of the vital force, custodians of the subtlest energy that sustains vigor, clarity, and inner orientation. According to the latest custodians of these teachings, weakening of the kidneys not only saps physical strength, but also dims the light that nourishes spiritual clarity, making unmotivated tiredness, back pain, and loss of willpower signs of a profound conflict. When, in 1959, the devastation of Tibetan monasteries put the survival of this knowledge at risk, some manuscripts nevertheless managed to elude destruction and reach safe places. Among them was a work attributed to the monastic physician Tenzin Dorje, written in the last years of his life as a last resort to safeguard knowledge that had been passed down in silence for centuries, which affirmed that the kidneys were the secret altars of the primordial force of being. The manuscript described practices considered astonishing: breathing capable of producing endogenous heat, mountain herbs that invigorated the vital substance, massages capable of awakening dormant organs, and ritual movements that re-established the harmony of internal currents. But his boldest claim was that the essence stored in the kidneys determined the length of life, mental clarity, emotional stability, and spiritual power. Dorje said that an individual's life is similar to an oil lamp. Those who live with moderation conserve their fuel until an advanced age, while those who are consumed by fears, excesses, or failure to observe the body's profound needs quickly disperse their energy. Thus, when the vital store dries up, the body collapses like a building deprived of its foundations, since the kidneys, deprived of their essence, can no longer support the internal system. The doctor also recalled the episode that in his youth had introduced him to this understanding, assisting a young monk deprived of vital kidney force who died before dawn despite his apparent youthfulness. He understood then that the deep and prolonged fear had consumed the very substance of that man's life, making his kidneys dry and incapable of supporting the organism. Dorje's master explained that in the Himalayan medical tradition, the kidneys hold the core of the ancestral energy received at birth, a non-renewable inheritance that supports longevity, vigor, and clarity. Ancient texts describe these organs as two sources of light connected to the spinal column, the heart, the mind, and the generative sphere, and maintained that prolonged fear was capable of progressively emptying their most subtle substance. If these words are already touching something inside you, give the video a boost. It's precisely that extra energy that allows this message to reach many more people and bring them the same value it's reaching you. During his training, Dorje received from his master the revelation of the secret map, an energetic representation of the human body traced directly on his back with a medicinal dye. According to this tradition, thousands of subtle channels run through the body like invisible rivers, but 3 of them decisively govern kidney strength as they pass through the spine, the lower vital centers, and the depths of the abdomen. Through this teaching, he learned that there is a crucial point located in the lumbar region, called the door of life, whose opening allows the internal force to circulate and the renal substance to flow without stagnation. When this point is blocked, the vital essence stagnates, the kidneys become stiff and vitality declines, generating tiredness, weakening of the will, and perceptual opacity. The first practice transmitted to keep these channels active was deep breathing, aimed at generating internal heat and progressively awakening the sensitivity of the renal region. Through repeated deep breaths and visualizations of light spreading into his lower back, Dorje perceived his kidneys for the first time as pulsating centers of energy, not simply material organs. This technique, which tradition called breathing of inner fire, was considered an elementary form of a more complex discipline, capable of allowing practitioners to conserve endogenous heat even in the most extreme conditions. The aim was not to produce extraordinary effects, but to keep the vital spark alive in the kidneys, preserving their vigor and energetic fluidity throughout one's life. Dorje understood the importance of internal warmth during a particularly harsh winter, when a piercing cold struck him from within despite the burning fire and layers of clothing. His master then led him into a bare, freezing room, explaining that the most insidious cold does not come from the environment, but from weakened kidneys, incapable of generating the heat that sustains life. On that occasion, he learned the most advanced form of burning breath, capable of awakening the inner flame that can dispel the cold rooted in the depths of the body. Through rigorous exercise that involved correct postures, gradual contractions, and a disciplined imagination, Dorje was able to feel a core of heat originating in his lower abdomen and spreading up his back until it radiated throughout his entire torso. This experience was not only physiological, for it revealed to him that the inner fire, when well disciplined, represents the very matrix of vitality and the most powerful defense against hardening of the kidneys and against the tiredness that slowly wears away the deepest forces. Dorje later learned that kidney energy was compromised not only by traumatic events or adverse climates, but also by unprocessed emotions, particularly prolonged underlying fear. An encounter with a merchant afflicted by insomnia, tremors, and constant apprehension showed him how terror, imprinted in the body's memory, could contract the kidneys to the point of emptying them of vital substance, causing a progressive weakening of the entire person. The merchant's treatment combined calming decoctions, gentle breathing, and a process of internal reprocessing, so that the body could dissolve the emotional imprint that immobilized it. With patience and perseverance, the merchant's organs softened, his back stopped stiffening, and his energy slowly returned, demonstrating that fear, if addressed with the right tools, can gradually dissolve. This experience revealed to Dorje that the body retains emotions like a silent memory. While the outward manifestations may fade, the kidneys retain the subtle imprint of unexpressed fears. For this reason, the master taught that emotional liberation is an essential part of the cure, since only by dissolving these subtle layers is it possible to restore the kidneys to their natural fluidity. Dorje was later initiated into the most complete form of ardent breathing, a discipline guarded by hermit practitioners of the high mountains and passed on only to those who had developed sufficient mental stability and dedication. In the dim light of a freezing cave, he saw his master generate enough heat to evaporate the humidity from the air, thus understanding that the human body, if disciplined, can reactivate ancestral forces that ordinary life tends to suppress. The advanced technique required impeccable posture, preliminary purification of the lateral channels, and precise visualization of a flame enclosed in the lower center of the abdomen. Through slow, deep inhalations, followed by carefully modulated internal pressure, the imagined small spark expanded along the central channel, enveloping the kidneys with a heat that purified and opened them, making them more elastic and vital. These exercises, performed for decades, became Dorje's main maintenance discipline, preserving physical suppleness, mental clarity, and constant vigor even in old age. For Tibetan tradition, internal fire was not a metaphor, but a real principle, a subtle energy that, if nourished daily, prevents the kidneys from weakening and keeps the deep core of the being active. However, breathing was not the only means of support, as kidney weakness sometimes required physical nourishment of a higher density. During his years at the monastery, Dorje witnessed cases where the vital essence was so depleted that it required the use of rare plants from the Himalayan heights, believed to be capable of restoring vigor to the individual's internal substance. One of these substances was a singular mountain organism that combined vegetal and animal nature, considered the most powerful tonic of vital essence. Administered carefully together with tonic roots and invigorating fruits, it was found to be capable of awakening the energetic core of the kidneys, restoring clarity, color, and breath to those who were no longer able to produce enough strength to sustain themselves. Experience with this remedy showed Dorje that, when life seems to be fading, the organism can sometimes be rekindled through substances that concentrate within themselves the strength of the most extreme environments. Their function was not to replace breathing or internal work, but rather to provide the organs with a refined substance with which to replenish their depleted vital reserve, restoring balance where the essence had been thinned by age, illness, or prolonged despair. The master also taught that there are more accessible alternatives, also capable of supporting the kidneys during periods of profound fatigue. Adaptogenic roots from the mountains, nutritious berries, and tonic plants, when taken consistently, gradually invigorate kidney energy, improve resistance to exercise, reduce persistent fatigue, and promote more restful sleep, restoring the body to a sense of silent robustness. Alongside physical nourishment, a fundamental role was reserved for water, considered in Tibetan tradition to be a universal medicine when used in certain ways. During the exodus through the mountains, Dorje learned that gently heated water is a surprisingly effective remedy, since weakened kidneys tolerate neither cold, which contracts them, nor excessive heat, which irritates them, but welcome with benefit the lukewarm moderation that relaxes them without tiring them. Sipping temperate water at regular intervals, sometimes enriched with light herbs capable of promoting effortless elimination, was an essential practice for freeing the kidneys from stagnation, tension, and accumulated impurities. Even in the extreme conditions of escape, this method allowed the restoration of function to patients weakened by cold, dehydration, and fear, demonstrating that healing can arise from simple elements when used wisely. Over time, Dorje codified a daily use of temperate water that alternated purifying moments with remineralizing phases, adapting it to the needs of everyday life. In her experience, this ritual restores clarity, lightens the lumbar region, improves rest, and makes overall vitality more fluid, acting with profound gentleness where more intense approaches might tire rather than support. In addition to water and breathing, Dorje learned a set of codified movements that, according to Tibetan yogic tradition, allow the lumbar region to be freed from tensions that compress the natural fluidity of the kidneys. An elderly traveler, a master of such practices, revealed to him that the stiffness accumulated in the lower back obstructs the circulation of vital energy, making the organs unable to pulsate and breathe properly. The sequence included 3 main gestures: a standing swing that rhythmically compresses and stretches the kidneys, an undulating movement of the spine on the ground, and a supine position in which the hands, placed under the lumbar region, exert a deep massage from within the body weight. These gestures, repeated regularly, loosen silent knots, dissolve ancient tensions, and bring back the sensation of pulsating vitality that comes from the renal center. According to Dorje, the constant practice of these movements restores suppleness to the spine, lightness of breathing, and a sense of stable warmth in the lumbar region, signs that the kidneys are once again collaborating with the entire organism. He observed how many individuals, afflicted by chronic pain or dull fatigue, recovered tone and clarity within a few weeks simply by reteaching their kidneys to move and release. In the last days of his master's life, Dorje received a further transmission, a ritual massage intended to deeply revive kidney strength. The treatment was not intended to stimulate the muscles, but rather to reach through slow and targeted pressure the emotional and vital core guarded by the kidneys, dissolving the layers of fear, pain, and tiredness that often remain trapped in their depths. The master showed him how 3 regions of the body had to be touched with particular attention. The area next to the spine, which represents the gateway to renal energy, the sacral region, where the most ancient memories of fear are deposited, and the hips through which one can speak directly to the kidneys with a heat that the body recognizes as nourishment. This massage revealed to Dorje that conscious contact can release emotions that have been held silent for years. Dorje performed this massage throughout his life, finding that it restored softness, warmth, and a subtle breath to the kidneys that seemed to come from their very center. Over time, he understood that these organs retain not only physiological strength, but also the deepest emotional memory, and that conscious touch allows one to dissolve what the mind can no longer process. This practice became for him a daily gesture of care, capable of renewing vitality and keeping the depths of the soul clear. After his exile, Dorje experienced a crisis that directly demonstrated the connection between the reins and the will. Once driven by discipline and devotion, he suddenly found himself disoriented, consumed by melancholy and a weariness that no amount of rest could alleviate. When he touched his lower back, he found that it was cold and stiff, a sign that the internal fire had gone out and that the kidney essence had ceased to sustain his spirit. That night, driven by an inner urge for survival, he resumed the ardent breathing he had abandoned, persisting until a spark of heat re-emerged from the center of his belly. This spark became a growing flame that, expanding toward his kidneys, reawakened in him a strength he had thought lost, the ability to desire, to act, to give form to his intentions. He then recognized that will does not arise from thought, but from the most intimate substance guarded by the kidneys. Dorje later applied these practices to patients who had lost momentum and motivation, finding that their discouragement was not merely psychological, but rooted in profound kidney weakness. When the vitality of the kidneys was rekindled through breathing, movement, infusions, and massages, the will spontaneously blossomed again, as if the soul could finally rest on solid and luminous foundations once again. From these experiences, he concluded that strengthening the kidneys means restoring a person's core of self-determination, since these organs hold the capacity to move forward, to resist, and to transform obstacles into direction. Thus, for those who feel dull or aimless, the Tibetan path suggests healing the kidney center first, since the rebirth of the entire will depends on its rebirth. Years later, Dorje met a master of sound arts from the Eastern Mountains who brought with him knowledge of vibration as a therapeutic tool. According to this discipline, each organ resonates at its own frequency, and when this internal harmony is disrupted by trauma or emotional overload, the correct vibration can restore its profound harmony, dissolving tensions that no massage or decoction can dissolve. The master showed him how particular sounds could rearrange the water that makes up most of the human body. A deep, steady resonance, produced by metal instruments or the voice itself, penetrated the lumbar region, dissolving emotional density and restoring elasticity to the kidneys. Dorje perceived this effect as a subtle movement, similar to the abandonment of internal burdens that had silently accumulated over time. Through subsequent sessions, he learned to use sound as a means of energetic purification, as the vibration, spreading through the spinal cord, back, and abdomen, released sedimented memories that sometimes prevented the organs from breathing fully. This practice became an integral part of his method, an indispensable complement to body and breathing techniques to complete the process of renal renewal. Over the years, Dorje observed that many internal rigidities did not respond immediately to physical remedies, but gradually dissolved as the person learned to produce a prolonged, modulated, and conscious vibration. This sound oscillation favored a sort of internal awakening, in which the kidneys rediscovered their natural frequency, and with it, the ability to support the entire emotional architecture of the individual. Over time, he integrated breathing, movement, water, herbs, massage, and sound into a single daily ritual, considering it the most complete synthesis of the Tibetan tradition. This ritual became his legacy, as it united in a single current what life, practices, and painful experiences had shown him as complementary paths, aimed at preserving the subtlest spark of life in the kidneys. As the years passed, Dorje understood that the authentic value of the tradition did not lie in the exceptionality of individual techniques, but in their integration, since each practice acts on a different level of being. Breathing ignites the inner fire, movement releases structural tensions, water gently purifies, herbs nourish the densest substance, massage releases silent memories, and sound restores the profound harmony of internal vibrations. He thus understood that kidney care is not an isolated act, but a journey that recomposes body, emotions, and spirit in a single movement, restoring continuity to what modern life tends to fragment. For this reason, tradition did not encourage the sporadic use of such practices, but their constant repetition, so that the kidneys could recover their function as guardians of vitality and inner determination. According to Dorje's view, kidney weakness in contemporary man does not only derive from excesses, fears, or irregular rhythms, but above all, from the loss of a conscious relationship with one's energetic core. Living disconnected from deep listening to the body leads to an imperceptible consumption of vital force, while a return to daily discipline gradually rekindles the inner source from which clarity, balance, and courage flow. For this reason, he transmitted a unitary ritual, intended to be performed every day in the morning and in the evening, as an act of internal reconstruction. In the morning, lighting the fire through breathing and movement. During the day, moderate consumption of warm water and invigorating infusions. In the evening, massage and sound vibrations dissolve emotional residues and restore calm to the kidneys before bed. This set of gestures, though simple in form, represented for Dorje the highest expression of Tibetan medicine, a practice that does not separate matter and spirit, but reunites them in a cure that preserves the strength to live. He claimed that, if repeated consistently, this ritual not only supports the body, but restores the individual's ability to face existence with clear determination and an alert heart. What you have just heard is not just a remote tradition, but a concrete invitation to reconnect with the most silent and powerful source of your life. If you feel something shifting inside you, don't ignore it. It's a sign that your body and inner self are ready to regain balance and vigor. If the video inspired you, support it with a hype, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and write the word essence in the comments. It's the best way to show that you're part of this journey and to bring this content to those who truly need it. I wish you renewed vitality, a clear vision of your path, and a serenity born from within. See you soon.